Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to another episode of Film Chums. Joining me is my co-host, Viva Becker.
Hello, extremely tired Viva Becker here.
We're both very tired because we've been watching the Disney remakes, which are renowned for being intensely boring. They're just
not renowned enough.
I feel right now like I've gone on a marathon without leaving the house. Okay? That's the level of energy I have. I'm going to do the best I can, but it's so difficult to keep awake after watching all these movies. Okay, so Viva, how would you sum up Disney remakes in a nutshell?
As a brand, they're Disney saying, give us your money right now. Hand over the money! Give us the money. That's it.
You make it sound like the ticket office has got a gun on you.
That's the way it feels.
Okay, so for those who don't know, the Disney remakes are basically live action or photorealistic reimaginings of classic animated movies. The thing is, when they're remaking them, they're way more sterilized. And there's so many reasons why that's the case. But at the same time, we don't want to spend this whole podcast bashing them. We're going to take up the challenge of how could these films be better. We will get to that. But first we have to explain why they're bad. Because we can't critique how a movie could be improved unless we talk about what makes them so bad. And the thing is, yes, we may be generalizing because we're talking about a big chunk of films. But the thing is, I've watched about...
They're all the same.
Every single
film is exactly the same.
I've watched about 9 or 10 of these films back to back, and there are consistent patterns and problems. These films were not made because some bright spark at Disney had a great new vision for one of these old movies. Disney just know that they can get ticket sales through recognizable titles and familiar imagery. They're not thinking about, okay, how good is this going to be? They're thinking, right, how can we edit the trailer? How can we make the posters? And the thing is, some people defend these remakes as films for a new generation of kids and say they're not for adults. But I think that's nonsense because, A, they're mainly remaking movies from the 90s, films that millennials can immediately emotionally resonate with. It's like, it's nostalgia for Disney to exploit.
It's not like one of Disney's most famous quotes ever is that movies should be made so everyone can enjoy them, of all ages.
True.
It's not like that's a famous Disney quote or anything.
If Disney really cared about reintroducing these films to new audiences, they'd just re-release those films in cinemas. It's not like they're out of print or lost.
Yeah, or they would have thought about the movies that they were making for a couple seconds.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But, we should definitely get into what goes wrong with these films. Where did they fall apart as you're watching them? Because, their issues are so blatantly obvious. And you could go through a checklist of each thing that goes wrong each time. So I'd say the first thing is that they are very tonally confused. They are clearly struggling with bringing animation into live-action context, never knowing if they should embrace the cartooniness of the original films or just be full-on grounded. So they end up trying to be both, and it just gets weird.
It's just a bad idea to take a cartoon and try to make it look like a more realistic cartoon.
Yes.
Congratulations, you've just stripped away all of the magic and the storytelling that you can get from the medium of cartoons.
It becomes so clear while you're watching these scenes being remade because they're slower. They're flatter, they're more tired, because live action can't recreate the same kinds of dynamic that animation can create. You can't do that again through live actors, or even through photorealistic animation effects. You can't. It's going to be a different thing. And instead of these films going like, okay, they're live action, we're limited, how do we work around this? They try to force it to happen. They try to force it to look consistently like the animated version, and it just doesn't add up.
The genie! The genie's on fire! The genie's on fire, folks! stole them. Somebody cool me down. Somebody put me out. I'm too much. I'm back. So what do you think?
In Aladdin, when they tried to do one jump ahead, that is the slowest one jump ahead I've ever had to sit through. Like, one jump ahead is known for having a really snappy pace, and Aladdin darting from place to place, but like Aladdin's like climbing and like, oh, one jump. it's so tired and flat. God, oh my God, how am I?
For me, I would say the biggest problem is the stories were not created as a story. They were created as a mixture of story elements, so there is no energy or overarching momentum throughout any of the pieces, which really affects the feel. Everything is so bloated. Things don't really make sense in the story, and you don't have any motivation to watch the next scene.
I think the biggest detriment to these films is that they don't seem to understand what went into making the originals. The original films weren't produced overnight. They all took a year to develop. Story artists would spend day and night trying to make the pacing work, flesh out the characters, tie scenes together, keep themes consistent. They went through pitch meetings and script feedbacks to decide what should be kept in the storyboards and what should be improved on. They didn't write these scripts. They didn't write one draft and start shooting. So trying to expand and bloat these movies, it just ignores all that hard work that went into them and underestimates what was put into them.
I mean, I'm convinced some of the lines weren't even scripted for these movies because they're so meandering and confusing as to why they're in the movie. I'm convinced that a number of characters are just like, oh, you're famous, you've done comedy before, just come in here and make stuff up and we'll animate to it and put it in.
Well, can you think of like what's the most awkward dialogue that you heard from the films?
There were a lot of characters that sounded like they were just making stuff up in the Jungle Book movie, like background animals. Those were pretty awkward.
Oh boy, looks like you got another one. Buzz off.
It's a man cub.
A man cub?
Yeah, it's a man cub.
It's not a monkey.
No, it's not. It's a man cub.
You have never been a more endangered species than you are at this moment.
I'd say that the best example of the dialogue not working, and this is something that's been brought up before, is there's a scene at the end of The Lion King where Nala and Simba are coming back to Pride Rock and they're ready to take on Scar, and the dialogue they trade in that is just so it just doesn't. It's the same dialogue, but because The Lion King has this really sterile, hyper-realistic style of animation, the script doesn't fit it, and because the visual style is dictating how voice actors should read, they just end up sounding really wooden.
I didn't want to believe you.
So what are you gonna do?
My father once told me to protect everything the light touches. If I don't fight for it, who will?
I will.
It's going to be dangerous.
Danger? Ha! I laugh in the face of danger.
The voice acting in all of the movies makes me disappointed. I did not hear one voice performance for the CG characters that really jumped out to me, and I was like, yeah, that really works. It's really good.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Is like all of the casting is down to, okay, how many names can we put in the trailer, and that's it. It's not.
I'm pretty sure they didn't audition anybody.
It sounds like it half the time because so many of these actors, that they can be good actors, but like they're so miscast, so woefully miscast. Like they don't fit these roles.
The casting is just awful. It's so bad.
It's like they thought name first and character second.
Yeah, I don't understand some of the casting. Usually with celebrity casting like that, if they're going for a specific person, at least they try to match up that celebrity's public persona with the character. Like, are they similar feeling ones? Then let's get this famous person. They didn't even do that.
No.
They didn't even do that for these movies.
No. It was just anyone that was famous. That's it. That was the line. That was the requirement.
I'm thinking about the Lady and the Tramp remake, and they have Tessa Thompson as Lady. And I'm really sorry, because Tessa Thompson is good in some things, but man, she was bad. She was very, very, very bad as that character. It doesn't fit with her public persona.
No.
It doesn't fit with the characters that she's played before, and she couldn't pull off the performance. It was just, I mean, sorry, it was probably one of the worst performances I've ever heard.
Wow.
Hey.
You're not trusty.
Correct, but you...
Did you just hear everything that I said?
Yes.
Where is your collar?
Yeah, long story.
Where is Trusty?
Trusty, I'm sure, is somewhere.
And what are you
Trusty?
doing in there? Get out of there!
Trusty!
Hey, my people are inside. I'm gonna warn them.
Oh, no. Hey, let's not warn the people.
See, the thing is, because there's nothing really profound or unique about any of the voices in the remake that I heard, none of them stood out as being particularly bad to me. Because they all blend in as just being as forgettable as each other.
What about the French accent in Beauty and the Beast, the candlestick?
Man, that
was a very consistent accent.
Oh, that was awful. Oh, that made me so sad, because I love Hugh McGregor, and I was like, "What are you doing, Ewan?
What are you doing?
What is that?
You've embarrassed yourself.
What is that?" And the thing is,
He's supposed to be French.
Yeah.
They're coming! Final checks, everyone! Two tweets!
No, you don't. If the master finds out you violated his orders and fed her, he will blame me.
Yes, I will make sure of it. But did you see us stand up to him? I am telling you, this girl is the one. They must fall in love if we are to be human again. And how can they fall in love if she stays in her room?
It was so awkward, because all I could hear was Hugh McGregor in the booth really struggling to get out an authentic accent. And I think that's another issue with the voices for these photorealistic characters, is that because they're so because they're so forgettable, and because the animation is just so off-putting or boring to look at, you just start picturing the actors in their booths. Because there's nothing else to latch onto. You get so distracted.
Yeah, maybe.
I
start sitting around picturing, like, how many people could I list that would do this better? Who would I have hired? Who deserves to be here more than this person?
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so I need to ask this, because I know this is a question.
Okay.
I know this is a question everyone's gonna want to know.
Which is our least favorite one?
Like how you knew before I could even ask. It's a difficult one to answer. But which one would you go for?
I have to go Mulan.
I understand. I completely understand.
Yeah, I would be willing to watch any of the other ones. If I was with some people and they really want to put on one.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to watch any of them, but if they put on Mulan, I would be gone. I'm not going to watch that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not only a bad movie and an insulting movie, it's also a movie riddled with extremely poor business practices.
Yes.
And it's a net negative impact on the world to watch and support that movie.
It is, yeah. I felt awful watching it. I really did. There's just so much wrong with Mulan. I mean, the thing is, yeah, The Lion King is just a boring scene-for-scene remake, but at least you don't.
Yeah, at
you
least
don't
they
feel
didn't
guilty
enslave
watching
people
it.
for that movie.
Sorry?
Yeah.
You don't.
At least they didn't enslave people for that
Exactly. Like, you don't feel guilty, you just feel bored. But when you're watching Mulan, it's just a constant reminder that this is just Chinese propaganda all the way through. And it's one. Yeah, that's the thing. I'd say, yeah, all the others boring, unimaginative. But then you throw in disgusting and gross. You're like, oh great. It just piles on. It's like that's why it stands out from the others. It's like it's one thing to be boring and uninspired. It's another thing to just be insanely problematic to the point where what was the point of remaking it?
There's no good press around that movie, and the audacity, the balls on Disney to release it on Disney Plus for $30.
It just that moment really exposed all of their intentions just flat out. The moment they did that was like, yeah, we know why you make these. We know exactly why you make these. But where do you even start with Mulan? Because so like it tried to market itself as like, we're gonna try and do this respectfully, and it's going to be a more serious take. We're gonna take out the fantastical elements, and you're watching and you're like, no you're not. There's so many more issues with this one compared to all the others, and like,
yeah,
again, boring. I struggle to say this was the hardest one to stay awake to. I was pulling my head up, literally trying to keep up with it, because Mulan herself is such a dull, undeveloped character played with no life whatsoever, because the movie seems to think, oh, the more stoic a character is, the more interesting they are. No! It just makes them more uninteresting. And like, she starts off as a character with all this magic power, this magic chi power, which is already an appropriation of chi spirituality, like a Western idea of chi. And like, she starts off all this amazing power, and we're meant to see her going through a journey of training and getting better. No, she's just going from perfect to more perfect. That is her arc in that movie.
Yeah, it was extremely disappointing. There is no journey.
No.
And I feel like I should be pretty much the perfect audience for that movie. Like when they were planning out, you know, who should we make this movie for? It should have been me. And I refused to even watch the movie because they messed it up so much. They stripped away all the stuff that's supposed to make you feel good, and they made it so that it's supposed to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The message of the first one is, you can be special in your own way. No, not everybody has to be the same. The message of the other one is, fuck you. You have to be magic.
Yeah.
If you're not magic, then what are you doing?
There's nothing relatable.
What kind of message is that?
There's nothing at all relatable about this version of Mulan. There's nothing to resonate with at all.
Just be magic?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like the fight scenes are so horrible because they're nauseating to look at because the editing is just so frantic, and there's so much CGI effects and like an overuse of wire effects, and like, yeah, I get it's trying to pay tribute to wushu martial arts films, but it doesn't mean it's doing
Maybe
it good.
Maybe they should have actually gotten a team that knows how to make those movies,
yes,
then, instead of getting this random freaking New Zealand lady who hasn't made those movies before.
This movie does not. It's not a good introduction to that genre whatsoever. It really isn't, because you can't see what's going on half the time. And when you see those original...
Yeah, well, just because you have wires in your movie doesn't mean that you're doing it. There's other things in the genre that make it what it is.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, there's a sense of style, elegance, and grace, and patience and nuance to wushu movies. When you look at them, you're like, wow, they've managed to frame this in a really imaginative, delicate kind of way. And Mulan's like, we're just gonna keep cutting shots. Just leave the camera on and then we can see the whole fight. That's where the principles of martial arts cinema comes from.
They wipe away all of the bisexual representation in the
because,
movie.
oh no, we cannot have any queer coding in a film that's being marketed directly to China. No whatsoever.
Please.
And instead, we just get...
They showed the original Mulan movie in China.
Yeah. I've had Chinese friends that have seen Mulan, so like that's not a good excuse. That's not a good excuse. And like, what do they have in its place? A romance with just some nice, friendly soldier that she has zero chemistry with and barely any scenes with. Their only sexual tension is, oh, you smell bad. That's it. That's literally it. That's as close to hot as we get. It's so bad. The other thing is, the metaphors treat us like we're complete idiots. Viva, do you see the phoenix? There's a phoenix in this film. There's a phoenix. There's a phoenix.
It's almost like she is the phoenix.
She's like a phoenix, but like I didn't get it at first. But then they had phoenix wings behind her, which is really original. Nothing's ever done that visual metaphor before. When I saw that, I was like, "Thank you."
Oh my gosh! It's just like the part in Twilight. Now I know.
Ugh. And it's not just that. They also have this like sorceress character in the film, who they tried to make into a sympathetic villain. I'll get to that. But like, she is supposed to be like, what if this is the person Mulan could be if she used her chi powers for wrong? And it's just constantly the characters going, "You're like me. You're like me. Maybe I'm like you. You're like me." I'm like,
no,
I'm emo you. Do you get it? I'm emo you.
Disney keeps on trying to put these messages into their movies that are supposed to be positive social messages. The problem is that Disney doesn't believe in any of the messages that they're putting in, so they mess it up every single time. In Mulan, they're trying to do a message about female empowerment. So what do? Let's have a female character say that she's really powerful and then have her go out from one arrow. Oh, spoilers for the movie, by the way.
There's going to be spoiler warning. It's alright, we've got spoiler warning.
One arrow, doesn't even fight, goes out like a little bitch. Where's all that power? There is none, because Disney doesn't even believe their own messages.
No.
You like her character because she cares about her family enough to make a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice if you're literally already doing the same thing before the war starts.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so early on, before I was saying about how they tried to make this sorceress into like a sympathetic villain. And that's a possible thing to do with antagonists, but this is a sorceress that's gone around committing genocide. You can't suddenly make me go, "Aww," a character like that. I'm not in. The thing is, yeah, you can have villains going through a redemption arc, but they have to earn that redemption. There are some characters where you like,
James,
what?
But James, the Chinese government goes around and commits genocide, and you're supposed to go, "Aww."
There was a really good point that I saw one video bring up, how the villain in this doesn't really have a reason to... You don't really have a reason to hate him, because, yeah, there is some reason to why he's doing what he's doing. Like, he's avenging his father, and China has taken his land. So it's almost like he's not the bad guy, but the film wants to frame him as the bad guy.
Full disclosure, I did not actually watch the movie because I think I haven't said anything about anything that I have not seen clips of, but I'm not going to support that movie. And I suggest that everybody else not support it as well. This is usually on here we say, don't watch a movie, joking around, saying like, oh, it's really bad, you're not going to have a good time. Completely beyond whether or not you'd have a good time. Do not watch the movie because it supports extremely negative business practices.
Yeah, it does.
And it will... This is a real-life consequence. These are real-life consequences that are, people are dying over this shit,
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just watch it as like a joke.
Yeah,
at this point, it's not worth it.
It's really not. It's
to
not.
Anyone.
It's not. It's totally not worth it. I mean, like after watching it, I just feel disgusted with myself for going through it. And like the only reason I've done it is because it's my job. I don't
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy doing it. I didn't feel happy doing it. I just had to see it so then I could back myself up when talking about it. That's the only reason. I had no pleasure whatsoever supporting the film. None at all. But we don't want to turn this into a whole Mulan podcast as much as we would enjoy making it.
Can't you tell how much I'm enjoying myself right now?
So out of all the Disney remakes you saw, one that is not Christopher Robin and not a remake of a hybrid / animation film.
Yeah, fuck you, James.
I'm sorry, but we're going to have to be pedantic because I know that the audience is going to be pedantic too. Which was the one you would say is the most watchable?
Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movie.
Is there any reason why?
Because that one has like a nice aesthetic that you can look at.
Kinda.
It's the Tim Burton aesthetic and you can look at it.
You can look at it, but I don't say I'd like it. Personally, I wouldn't say it looks nice, especially with the motion capture characters with like really grotesque, exaggerated appearances. Those are really creepy to look at. But I get what you mean. It kind of looks like the illustrations from Alice in Wonderland books, sort of, but at the same time you can see that Burton is like indulging in his usual shtick. So it's like a meld of both of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that one, since it was such an early experiment in this whole thing, they let him be a little bit more free in his vision for the movie. I'm not going to say that it's a really strong movie, but at least it seemed like there was an idea instead of many ideas that were kind of haphazardly glued together.
Oh, yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of weird things that are uncomfortable to watch, like the Knave's giantess fetish.
Okay, well, you can't win. I wanted to go with Christopher Robin, okay? That's just Ewan McGregor messing around in the forest for an hour, pretty much by himself, so...
It's so much easier to watch.
You shot that one down, so I don't know what you want me to say.
No, I get it. That's the hard thing about this question, is that you really have to stretch it to explain why it's one of the ones that's easier to watch. But at the same time, Alice in Wonderland isn't great, because like it's still got essences of the other remakes. It's just less noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you still got Alice looking pretty bored. Like this is more of a minor inconvenience to her than a scary dream or a trip to a fairy tale world. And I'd say my only real major issue with Burton's Alice in Wonderland is that it's less Alice in Wonderland and more like it's using Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean as its template. But that became a bit of a pattern as well for Disney remakes, is that they didn't think, okay, how do we remake this material? They look at the box office and go, oh, the Middle-earth movies, they're doing really well. Oh, the Pirates of the Caribbean films, they're doing really well. How do we take that and apply it to something like Alice in Wonderland or Sleeping Beauty?
Yeah, it doesn't have much to do with the original Alice story or the original Alice movie, and the internal logic of the movie isn't very strong.
But like,
so
I would say
I agree.
Yeah, I prefer that though to just a boring, dead scene for scene remake. I'd rather it go off and do something stupid and weird, because at least that's more entertaining than just seeing the same thing again, but less fun. Yeah. So for me, technically it shouldn't count, but technically it kind of does count. And so there is a 1994 Jungle Book movie, and starring Jason Scott Lee as Mowgli, because Hollywood is racist enough to believe that a Chinese Hawaiian guy is dark enough to play an Indian. But besides that, unlike all the other films that ended up being remade, this one, it gave me, what's the word? Feelings. It gave me feelings. I had fun. That's it.
So
fun.
many that you don't even remember what the word feelings.
Fun. I had this sensation called entertainment. It was okay. So yeah.
Oh
so,
well, it's just been so long for you, hasn't it?
But like, okay, so the 1994 Jungle Book. It's nothing amazing. It is pretty much a Tarzan clone with elements of Indiana Jones. But like, it really embraces itself, and it's just got this really 90s campy charm to it, and Jason Scott Lee is adorable as Mowgli, and you've got Carrie Elways playing a really silly kind of villain, and it's just fun. And that's what a lot of these newer remakes have lost. And that it's really
I knew you were gonna say that one, by the way. I knew you were gonna pick that one. I knew it.
The thing is, it does sort of adapt Jungle Book at the beginning and the end, and that's another thing. When it comes to remaking these films that have animals in them, yes, I respect the newer films for using CGI animals because, yeah, that's less uncomfortable to watch than watching animals being exploited for our entertainment. But at the same time, these CGI animals, the stories you get them to tell, and when you get them to speak, it doesn't work. With 1994,
they try to make him look so real.
Yeah, with 1994 Jungle Book and the 101 Dalmatians remake, the animals don't talk. They just act like animals, and they work with that, and it makes it more interesting too, because you're having to see, okay, how are these dogs going to be trained to get across certain things? And like, it never looks creepy. It might look a little silly, but it never looks like unnerving. It just looks cute. So like, yeah.
I think it depends a lot on the skill of the filmmaker, though, because they don't have the dragon in Pete's Dragon talk, and that really dragged on the movie. Like, it really affected the storytelling of the movie because they didn't come through with the animation of the dragon. The best way to fix that would be make the animals animated, like 2D animation.
Actually, I'd say that just have them be hyper-realistic looking animals through CGI, but just don't make them talk. And just have it be like a story that's like a National Geographic documentary, because that's what The Lion King felt like anyway. So why don't you just do that?
Yeah, make the animation good.
Because that's the thing, is that The Lion King's animation, as pretty and detailed as it is, technically in the principles of animation, it is bad because it does not convey the right emotions for you to read. Can
I just bring up something really quickly?
Sure.
In terms of the animal animated things.
Sure.
The way in the Jungle Book when they kill the wolf pack leader guy, they probably shot that. They probably animated that in the worst way possible. In terms of they kill him in a wide shot where you can see none of the faces of the animals that are involved.
Yeah.
And it just looks silly. It looks silly because they threw him off. He doesn't really have much of the weight, so it looks like this little weird little feather or whatever they're throwing off the cliff. And is it not messed up that later in the movie they have the children of the wolf eating him?
I never noticed that. What?
I was like, what the heck? This is a silly kids movie, and then just randomly they show the tiger feeding the dead wolf to his children. What the heck? And they never bring it up again. And the wolf children are like fine. They grow up and they never face any repercussions for eating their
trauma.
father? Okay.
So
what is this?
So Mulan.
What's this?
So the live action Mulan cannot have any blood in its war scenes, but we can have wolf cubs eating their dad.
Yeah. I
Where's
was
the line, Disney?
I was watching and I was kind of not paying attention too much, and then I was like, wait a second. Are they eating their father?
Which is the last thing you'd say while watching a Disney film. hey, usually
I just wanted to point that out. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, I get you. I totally get you. This trend isn't going to die anytime soon. So out of all the movies, out of all the animated movies they've not remade yet, which do you think has the most potential to work in live action?
The key to making a movie work in live action is what animated movie do you have that doesn't really need the reality stretching effects of animation?
Yeah.
Hunchback. Remake Hunchback. Live action, there's no like magic in that movie, so you don't really need the animation. There's no talking animals. And it has a small cult following, but it's not this big cultural icon that you can screw up if you make the movie really bad. And bring in, they were planning a Hunchback on Broadway show, and they released the soundtrack, but use some of the extra songs for that, and I would say do Hunchback.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like, when I try to think of the stuff there that you would, like, have to do in live action, I think the only thing you probably need to do is the gargoyles. But at the same time, I can imagine...
But nobody liked the gargoyles, so they could just cut the gargoyles.
That's what I think would happen anyway, because of Disney's approach to these remakes is that they try to go for things that are... They try to cut out or tone down things that a lot of people were vocal about not liking. So I think they probably would.
Yeah, I mean, they cut the dragon in Mulan, so they could cut the gargoyles easily.
They probably would. But I don't know what they would use as an alternative for Quasimodo to talk to.
They could just make him crazy.
Could work. Disney remakes seem to base a lot of their creative decisions on nitpicky articles like 30 things wrong with The Lion King or top 10 mistakes in Aladdin you never noticed, stuff like that, which just leads to monologues or overextended scenes desperately trying to patch up plot holes that were never there or we never cared about.
Yeah, and then makes them worse. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what makes me a little afraid about what they would change for Hunchback.
I mean, if anybody watching this have not seen what they did for the stage version, I would recommend checking it out. They do make some changes, but all the changes are kind of to make it darker. And I know that the cult following around Hunchback is very into kind of the darker elements, so
yeah,
I think if they added more of those darker elements, it might be good.
I think my only concern would be if they remade Hunchback how would they approach the color scheme? Would they drain all the colors just to put more focus on look how dark this is, like they did with Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, they would probably drain the colors.
Yeah, that's what they're the main and one of the best things about Hunchback is their color scheme and their lighting, and I want to be able to look at what I'm watching.
I mean, we can talk all day design like how we would want it to be. I love the idea of having stronger lighting, especially in like one strong color, like the sanctuary scene at the end. I love how that's just really orange everywhere. I think that would be really cool on film, in more of like a live action kind of deal. I'm sure it would be all CG, of course, but
possibly. I'm trying to think on my end. I'm trying to think what I'd like to see in live action, and you're definitely convincing me that Hunchback is probably best, because all the others I'm thinking of, they would require like heavy special effects. No, I'm trying. I'm trying. I think Hunchback is the only one that is probably grounded in reality.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say Atlantis.
Could do, because like there's no creature. Well, there's like giant enemies and stuff, but like that'll probably work. But like there's no like aliens or mascot creatures or whatever. Like there's no comic relief monsters that they need to like do, and yeah, I think it could work. But my other worry would be that Disney remakes, one of I'd say the worst thing about their special effects are their green screens. And I can imagine them not doing a very good job with Atlantis' green screen effects, which would require a lot of green screening. But yeah, you're definitely right about Hunchback, because like, no, I can't think of any that are grounded in reality like Hunchback is. So, we really need to get into the meat of this topic. What do you think needs to be done to improve these remakes if they're going to be released anyway? What, if you were to talk to Disney and say like, look, this is my advice, what would you give?
I would say, if you want to remake them, search for a script that is pre-made instead of trying to write your own with elements from the original one cobbled together with things that hurt your feelings from online. Because I think a really big thing killing these movies right now is they have no there's nobody at the helm of these movies. There's nobody controlling the vision and focusing the story or anything. They're just a pile of disparate elements, and you need either like the script that's going in a particular direction, or you just need some leadership at the head of these films to make them better.
You do make a good point though about leadership, how that you often can't tell who even directed most of these Disney remakes unless it's Tim Burton, because Tim Burton has a very distinct style, and I think that's because Disney's micromanaging and fingerprints are so heavily on these products.
Yeah.
And they just kind of
the people who are directing don't get to really direct. They just sit in the chair and then Disney tells them what to do.
Disney have very strict contracts, insanely strict contracts, and I mentioned this to you recently, but Jon Favreau actually said making hand-drawn Disney animated movies would be the real nostalgia exploitation, which we should call bullshit on. And like,
Jon Favreau should be pretty ashamed of what he's become.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He has sold out. He's when he says stuff like that, you can hear that a Disney executive has like whispered that into his ear. Like if any interviewers like start criticizing you for this franchise, then yeah, just say that. And there's this sense of bitterness there, like, oh, we know fans want more hand drawn, but we're not gonna. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're not even there in the interview, but you can feel the gun.
Yeah.
Pressing into the side of your head.
Yes.
Even though you're not Jon Favreau, you can still feel it.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice.
So, how I think the Disney remakes could be better goes back to my point about how the original animated films were made. The artists and writers for these classic cartoon movies picked a source material that they were passionate about, then went on a creative journey to decide their own unique direction. I think that these live-action remakes need to have that same kind of ambition. It doesn't matter which fairy tale or book they pick to adapt. What's important is that they start from scratch and make their own unique choices. Ones that will fit a live-action vision. They need to stop trying to replicate other people's creative journeys, especially ones in a different medium, and have fun charting their own path to something excitingly new.
Yeah, and they're trying to do the same kind of story, and it doesn't make sense to do the same story because it's already been done at the maximum quality that it can be done. Obviously, since they built their whole empire on top of how good those other ones were, they've been done so amazingly well that you have all this money now. If you want to do the same story, you can't make the same movie because it's already been... whatever you make is not going to be as good. I think it would be better if they tried to do different stories, but if they want to do the same ones, there is room to do that story a little bit different. I mean, some of those movies were made a really long time ago. The culture is different. The audience that's going to be watching it is different, and I can tell that they know that because they're trying to put these more nuanced social messages into the movie. The problem is that I guess all of whoever's figuring out these messages, their morals are still stuck back in the original movie, so the messages aren't working.
I think one of the biggest problems with, their attempts to get these messages across is that it's just commercial wokeness. It's pretty much the studio thinking, okay, how can we market this progressiveness? It's in the same line as, say, when companies will put up a rainbow on Pride Month or something like that. It doesn't have the sincerity there. It's pretty much how it's when they try to have changes to prove how progressive they are. It
makes it worse.
Yeah, all I can see, and they're so overt about it, because all I can see and all I can hear are studio executives going, "We're not racist, we're not sexist, we're not homophobic. Please keep buying our stuff." They're not doing it because they care about these campaigns, these movements. They're doing it because they want to keep sales going.
Yeah.
Want to keep up with the times.
A big thing that I wanted to talk about was, in the Lady and the Tramp movie, they decided to make the decision to change the couple that own Lady to be a mixed race couple, and to make the whole family like a mixed race black and white family. And I know why they did that, because they wanted to show everyone that they weren't afraid of diverse casting. Unfortunately, the result of that is erasure of black history. So you've made it worse. Congratulations, you've just made it worse.
That's the thing, is that, it's great that you're giving these acting opportunities to these ethnic actors, but you're also setting them at period times where racial tension existed, and to not address that existing is really
you've just
really
tried
iffy.
to wipe it clean and pretend it didn't happen. They got so much flack in Princess and the Frog when that happened.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that wipes away their whole diverse casting thing is they had an opportunity to do diverse casting that would be helpful to minorities in America and would work for the story in Mulan. And what do? They decided to go to China and get Chinese actors. Do they want to give opportunities to underrepresented Asian actors in America? They could have. There could have even been people in America that could have done all the stuff, spoken in Chinese, done all the martial arts and stuff, and they decided to go over to China and get Chinese actors. There's just no excuse. There's so many people that live in the market that you are making your movie for, which is America, and but they look the part. They have enough understanding of the culture, the language, whatever they would need to do to be able to perform the roles. And they didn't give the opportunity to them.
No.
Which is disappointing. And for me, when I heard that, I was very disappointed that they decided to do that, because it just furthers the stereotype that there's only one entity, whatever that is, Asian or Chinese people. Yeah. There's Chinese people that live in the United States that have lived here their whole lives. It's not the same culture. They're not the same people. There's Chinese people in China. There's Chinese people here, and it's completely different. It's a different culture. You can't, it's not the same. They're not all the same. We're not all the same.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah. That was just an opportunity, and they passed it up because they don't really have any care for that kind of thing. They're just trying to get points.
If Disney weren't producing remake after remake, what kind of original live-action movies would you prefer them to commit to instead?
I think it might be interesting for them to try to do more fairy tale adaptations. That's something that they're good at, and I think it's cool because it introduces people to new cultures. There's fairy tales from places that are not European in origin. That would be really cool, you know? There's a lot of African folklore, South American folklore, like there's a lot of Chinese folklore that's not just Mulan. And it would give them an opportunity to do what they want to do, obviously, which is get their diverse casting points. And maybe it would make them feel a little bit more secure to have a starting story and then do what they've been doing for years, like expanding that and updating it. I think that would be pretty cool.
No, I get you. I totally get you. They need to be more open-minded about what they can adapt and the library they have to work with. And they need to stop thinking, okay, they need to stop thinking their mindset of, right, we can't make any risks. What's worked before? Well, it's European folktales. They've always worked. They're easy to market as well. So, like, they need to get out of that frame and think, okay, what is out there? What can inspire us? Let's go find out. They just
I mean, they have princesses all over the world.
Yeah, they do,
or whatever princesses, whatever could be kind of like that.
Exactly, yeah.
For years, thousands of years, there's been princesses everywhere, so that's so many dolls that you could sell. Go to your library and go to the folklore section, and every single one of those stories is a new doll that you could sell. New lines of dresses.
We want you to steer away from that mindset, but like if that's the compromise,
if that's the only thing that that will be motivating to them.
All right, Icon, we're gonna make a middle ground. Middle ground, yeah. Middle ground, okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to be reasonable.
For me, I think the thing I would want them to start doing when it comes to original live action content is start thinking smaller. Too many of Disney's live action stuff, whether it's original or based on a theme park or a remake of something, they're always trying to think too big. They're always trying to think, okay, how can we turn this film into a future franchise? I know, we'll just take the whole fantasy epic template and just do that. It just doesn't matter where we go with it. It just has to be big and loud, and it'll get butts and seats. I feel like they need to go back to a time where they could make stuff that had the charm of simplicity, and to not always assume that bigger means better. Just think a little smaller and see what you can do with that. Because like they've done it before, and I feel like they could do it again. I want those days back. 'Cause I'm just so tired of seeing Disney trailers that frame themselves like the next Tolkien epic. Just chill.
And just maybe take it a little bit less seriously. Take themselves a little bit less seriously, and take a desire to entertain people more seriously.
Yes, 100% agree. Just have fun. There's nothing wrong with fun. It doesn't automatically mean immature or stupid. You can have fun and be intelligent at the same time.
Yeah, I took the Disney remakes were just crushing my soul, so I took a little break in the middle to watch the original Snow White movie. That movie is goofy as hell, and it doesn't really have much going on, and the story is weird, and but like the charm coming off of that movie is palpable. There's so much charm just radiating off of that stupid little movie. You can feel the earnestness in every messed up, blurry line that you can tell that they scratched out and did again.
Because that's the thing. Is that when you were making stuff like that, they went in with a sense of love and excitement. I think that same kind of magic, charm, and innocence is carried on in live-action films like Christopher Robin and Mary Poppins Returns. Yeah, they're not amazing movies, but there's a lot of love behind them. You can tell that they wanted to be made. There's passion there. The spirit of early Disney rings true in them. Okay, so I hope that you all enjoyed this podcast. We're very sorry if we sounded like we're on a Valium, but keep in mind what
That's
we've
what
gone through.
happens when you watch when you watch all the remakes back to back.
Okay. I've been Jamboree, and I'm going to bed.
I've been Viva Becker.
There's
And if I see Disney announce Frozen 2, the live-action remake, I'm never watching a Disney movie ever again.